Someone else gets paid before the employee gets paid. A good chunk of a worker's paycheck is taken before he receives a penny to live on. You may have noticed that most of a person's money is spent to cover living expenses, such as taxes, debt, inflation, and savings for a retirement plan, and thus goes into the pockets of the conspiracy. I believe this is why there is no financial education in our schools. If people knew where their paycheck was going, they would revolt. With a sound financial education, a person can minimize those expenses, or even use those expenses to put that money into their own pockets. For example, there are two reasons I do not have a traditional retirement plan filled with mutual funds. One reason is because the stock market is too risky. The average person has very little control over the market, and odds are a market crash will take most of their money eventually. And the second reason is because I would rather put that retirement money into my own pocket, not the pockets of those who control Wall Street. With a financial education, a person does not need to pay a mutual fund company to lose their money. Two different lifestyles. To better illustrate my point that a financial education is an unfair advantage, I will use the example of some friends of mine. Don and Karen, not their real names, are married and run their own business together much like Kim and I do. We are all about the same age and we all have college degrees. The problem is that Don and Karen have very little financial education or investing experience. While Don and Karen technically own their own business, in reality they are self-employed business owners in the self-employed quadrant, which means that if they stopped working, they would have no income. Kim and I own our businesses from the big business quadrant, which means the income comes in regardless of whether we work or not. Over dinner a few months ago, Don and Karen confided in us that they were concerned about their future because business was down, expenses were up, and their retirement portfolio had lost 40% of its value. They let 4 employees go, cut back on their lifestyle, and were wondering if they could afford to retire. They wondered how we were doing and whether we were concerned about the future and our ability to eventually retire. Our reply was that we are always concerned and never take things for granted, but that we were not cutting back. Instead, our income was increasing, primarily because we were using taxes, debt, inflation, and retirement money to our advantage. The difference is that Don and Karen see the world through the employee and self-employed eyes, and Kim and I see the world through the big business and investor eyes.
I want to
If
too.
you compared our respective financial statements, you would see that Don and Karen have a different focus than Kim and I do. Don and Karen focus on working harder to earn more money. Kim and I focus on our investments and increasing our business and personal assets to earn more money. As two self-employed business owners, Don and Karen have to work harder to earn more money. As business owners from the big business quadrant, Kim and I do not focus on working harder. We focus on increasing our assets, which in turn increase our income. By focusing on increasing our assets, we pay less in taxes, use debt to acquire more assets, and watch inflation increase our cash flow, which means that rather than sending our retirement savings to Wall Street, we put our money into our pockets via cash flow from businesses and personal assets. Don and Karen's only income comes from their business, and again, if they stop working, they have no income. That is why they worry. For Kim and me, most of our income comes from our business and personal assets, such as book royalties, invention royalties, licensing rights to use the Rich Dad trademarks, real estate income, oil and gas income, and stock dividends. Every month we receive a check for our assets, cash flow. And if you